Silicon Valley: technology, art, green, and sustainability.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability, SVTAGS. Today I'm very honored to have a wine grower with me, and it's John Schumacher. Am I pronouncing it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the vineyard has been around a very long time, Hallcrest, but that's not your last name. And I was like clicking going, oh, hey, is he related to my friend Doug Hall and, you know, some people, local people. So it's been around a very long time. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into how you came about to be a wine grower and vintner.
Certainly. I grew up in the Bay Area and on a small 2-acre farm. And my parents were both products of the Depression, so everything was waste not, want not. We were growing lots of plums and apples at the time. And
so you had one of those basements where they were saving the tinfoil and the glass and everything?
They weren't so much hoarders, they were very well organized, but all the fruit, all the fruits and vegetables, and we had these terraced vegetable gardens. We were growing everything. I mean, I just remember, pretty much between spring and fall, most of what we had on the table was pretty much what we grew besides.
That's awesome.
Got at a local store to supplement it. And so
what was the main thing they grew?
It all depended on the season.
So did they do apricots?
I ate a lot of plums and apples. That was
okay.
The apricots and certain type of stone fruit didn't do as well because they need riper circumstances. But the plums and apples did fantastic.
Okay.
So we were coastal kind of fog influence in the Bay Area, and so my mother was gone when I was about 13 years old. She was off on a trip. I was already into science. I was already into history. Learned a lot about winemaking from the Romans and Greeks. And
when you were 13?
Yes. So I'm going to give this a shot. And so I ended up making plum wine as a 13-year-old, and it turned out to be more like plum vinegar. And when my parents got back and they saw the results of this, they got me a home winemaking book. And then from there, it just took off. So each preceding year, I've utilized the fruit from the orchard, but also go up to a local home winemaking shop up in San Francisco to get supplies. So as a result, UC Davis was the only school I applied to because I wanted to become a winemaker, and that was the best school.
You wanted to get into farming, and they had the agriculture and
absolutely,
yeah.
And through various connections, I started to meet people that were beginning to start their vineyards up in the Napa and Sonoma valleys. So I kept in touch with a lot of those people. Was able to develop some connections and internships as a result of that. The plum wine, while I was studying at Davis, I ended up taking a distillation technology class, and I took all that plum wine and turned it into really good, high-quality plum brandy.
So off the get-go, you went into that. I thought you were an engineer originally, so for some reason.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
What would give that impression? But no, that's always been my heart and dream. The interesting thing about it is when I went off to Davis, it was kind of a changing of the guard as far as the professors, and it was like there was kind of like old wood and new wood and a few people in between, and there were about a half dozen professors that were to me really on top of things and of the times. There are other professors that were coming in from other areas of specific study but didn't really know that much about winemaking, so that was kind of interesting. And then the older professors, most of the studies and the money that they were involved with had to do with research, more to do with the Central Valley, not the boutique wineries up in along the coastal region. So it had more to do with gross production, mass scale production, and profit. So a lot of that efficiency had a tendency to do with the fact that if there was a problem out in the vineyard, you add ABC chemical or pesticide or herbicide. And if there's a problem in the winery, you add ABC preservative or chemical. And I thought, no, this is actually the world's oldest profession. I mean, it really is if you think about it, because it goes wine, women, and song.
Yeah.
And so wine is...
the Catholic Church wouldn't be allowed to have their services without the wine back in the day, right?
Well, and I could actually go off on this huge theoretical, religious, spiritual tangent upon that. But it is amazing that we have this beverage that nature actually makes for us due to the work that the yeast do, and it's the only alcoholic beverage that does not need the synthesis of man. So in fact, that's why I call myself a wine shepherd, not really a winemaker, because I'm not making the wine. nature is.
Nature
And
is.
so I'm just guiding the process.
So going back to your history, when you finished at UC Davis, did you work for somebody else, or did you?
Well, so I did do a couple of internships, one up in Napa at Cake Bread Cellars, and then one down at Felton Empire,
Did you
which
say
is the winery.
Cake bread?
Cake bread, yeah.
I love cake bread.
Yeah,
No wonder I like your
make
wine.
fantastic wines.
It's probably
And they
you
were-
that made the stuff I used to like there.
And I commuted on a daily basis actually from Davis to the winery, and that was my first real professional winemaking experience.
And that was only a
besides
few
all
years
the
ago, right?
Home winemaking, yeah, just a
few years.
pinch in time. And but at Davis, one of the things I was learning is that I was kind of dismayed by all the solutions they had, whereas I thought I was going to learn more of kind of like the true course of the path of winemaking, whereas everything seemed to be problem solving related in reference to using kind of like the modern industrial, at that time, the modern industrial age. And when I got out of Davis, one of the professors I was buying grapes from, we started our winery in our garage in Davis, and I think it was the youngest bonded winemaker in California, or winery owner in California at 24. And so I was getting grapes from a guy named George Nyland. He was the head of the pomology department, but he was since retired. Lovely guy. He was in his 70s, absolutely just strong as a buck. He'd helped me do lug 40 to 60 pound grape boxes when we were crushing and whatnot. But he was really big on the pesticide herbicide thing as far as problem solving in his vineyard.
Yeah.
Whereas down the road, about 4 or 5 miles outside of Davis, I was also sourcing grapes from an organic vineyard. And the organic vineyard is when there's no synthetic pesticides, herbicides, or mildicides used in the process. And when I'd go into that vineyard, I'd be taking samples, I'd be walking into spider webs, and yeah, there'd be some weeds on the ground, but the vineyard is full of life. You could see it teeming with life, but it was all in balance, and the grapes tasted incredible. The yields weren't as high, but they had more concentration of flavor, if you understand what I mean.
Oh,
What we
yeah,
call
yeah.
kind of like a lower crop ratio, or what we call now what's in balance and in moderation. Which I'd go into George's vineyard, and sometimes I couldn't even take grape samples because he had to have warning signs up after he sprayed. And you could smell this sickly chemical smell off the vineyard. And for me, I'm going, God, I think it's unethical for farm workers or anybody having to go in the vineyard. I didn't want to go in the vineyard and have that residual pesticides.
I'm going to pull up the first slide right now, as we haven't pulled up any slides really quick. And so here's actually up in the mountains. And what did you say the cat's name is?
That's Pinot.
Pinot.
Yes.
And is that a Pinot that Pinot?
We get more likes for Pinot than anything else on our Facebook site.
So that's actually not a Pinot next to Pinot then.
That's a Chardonnay next to Pinot.
That's a Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And then some
but
grapes.
it's called Pinot, technically Pinot Chardonnay, so it's.
And some grapes from your vineyard that somebody had blogged about. We can pull that down, and it's up in Felton.
Yes,
And
which
so
is
it's
just
beautiful.
6 miles north of Santa Cruz as the crow flies.
And your tasting room's there in
Yes.
Felton. And
Yeah.
do you have other tasting rooms too?
No, we don't. Most wineries cannot, for a second license, to have a tasting room someplace else.
Okay.
We haven't really found that perfect site. Plus, it would involve a lot of management. So, my wife and I really like keeping it small and intimate.
And you're open how many days for the tasting room?
Normally, it's about 7 days a week.
Okay.
Right now, we're kind of getting into the winter hours, so it's like
A little bit less.
Thursday to Monday from noon to 5.
Let's pull up one other slide really quick too. I had two at the beginning we were supposed to look at. And
but
so
I do want to
here-
finish telling my George Nyland
So
story.
tell us about this really quick. So
So
1949.
that is an historic label of the original Hallcrest bottle. So
And so what's at the bottom there? They look like coins.
those are medals.
Those are medals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
one of them was a
original?
gold medal from the Los Angeles County Fair. It's one of our first medals that we won for an organically grown wine I named after my daughter back in 1988.
So to finish the story.
So
and we pull
that was basically the kind of the coming of organic moment for us in sustainable viticulture. Was that when I was sitting here talking to George, he'd sit there and tell me, he goes, "Yeah, I just sprayed for leafhopper," and I go, "George, you spray for leafhopper, but you got all this more leafhopper in your vineyard than the guy down the road who doesn't spray for leafhopper at all." And what I realized is that in the vineyard that's balanced, there are predatory insects going after the insects you don't want, whereas in the vineyard that you're constantly doing the sprays, you're sitting here attacking these things with chemicals. One thing pops up, you attack it with a chemical. Another thing pops up, you attack it with a chemical. Plus, I didn't want to be in that vineyard. My whole thing about working with both in the vineyards and in winemaking was being in nature, in a natural process, and not having to worry about this industrial age of the byproducts.
Which isn't good for you. It's not good for the animals around. It's not good for the
It's
water
not for you.
content.
Good for your kids that run around
Right.
the winery and vineyard.
Yeah.
That's why we got our
Or the
place
pets
certified.
or- yeah.
Yeah, it's I didn't want to have to worry about it. And that will lead to another story that
Well,
has
so
come full
again,
circle.
going back, how did you become owner of, because this was 1949, right? And it wasn't a family thing.
Well, so in 41 is when